Just a few housekeeping things as we move forward today. So this is your PLC team that's joining you today. I'm Dr. Allison Ross. I'm one member of our training and implementation team. Today we have such a treat. Our whole team is here. So we have Jason Martinez and Paige Parker, our senior implementation specialist, as well as Armando Sierra, our professional services operations manager. So a lot of you are like, yep, those are our friends, and we're so glad you're here. To go over our agenda today, we're going to be looking at our top tips for the end of the year tasks. We're going to be talking about some aware elements as well as some summer training prep. So we're helping you think through all those things that are happening this time in the school year. And so we are excited to dive into those pieces with you. Just FYI, this is being recorded, so you will receive this link with the slides about 24 hours after we broadcast. And yes, we love your participation. So please, just so that we have all eyes on the questions, please use the Q&A feature on the webinar so that we can answer your questions, because there's 4 experts here, and so we want to be able to all see your questions at the same time and answer them accordingly. Also, if you ever want to check out our other topics, definitely go to our YouTube page. It's full of great information, past webinars, and just little bitty nuggets of info that help you that you can share out with your teammates and things like that on being Eduphoria power users. So always a great resource for that. So without further ado, let's dig into our end of the year tips and tricks. We are so excited to have the Jason Martinez. So Mr. Martinez, take it away.
All right, thanks, Allison. Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to start with system management, which really just is calendar maintenance. So setting up ready for next year. All of you at all of your districts, I'm certain your school board probably approved your new calendar, probably February or March, or at worst this month. So all the calendars are probably in there and ready to go from a standpoint of um, what you need to do. And so let's go ahead and build those calendars. You don't have to wait. As soon as the calendar becomes um, published, you don't have to wait. So you'll go to the management screen. So those of you that are system management roles and rights, and you'll be on the screen like this where it says school calendars. And when you click on school calendars at the bottom left, it will have a new calendar. So we have 2 calendars as a reminder. When you build a calendar, the initial calendar you're going to build will be called the instructional calendar. Your instructional calendar should match your begin and end date of school. It's going to ask you for the begin date, and you do want that to match your school calendar. So pretty straightforward. Pick your first day of school for next year as the begin date, last day of instruction for the end date. And technically, from an instructional calendar standpoint, that is all that is required. As you see on here, there are different day types that will be come up. You can definitely go in and change your holidays and student holidays so that your instructional calendar only counts instructional days. And that is very convenient and probably necessary for some of our applications. But at a minimum, we have to have an instructional calendar in there. So go ahead and build your instructional calendar. When you're building that instructional calendar in the wizard, it will ask you to build a reporting calendar. Now, there can be more than one reporting calendar, but we only have one instructional calendar. So let's talk specifically about the reporting calendar. The reporting calendar only affects AWARE. So let's make that clear. The only application that is impacted by the reporting calendar is AWARE, because it's dealing with when do we get those rosters from the student information system, and when does that roll up that happens in the SIS, when does that impact AWARE? And so you have that choice. And whereas the instructional calendar, you actually want to match the school calendar exactly, it is very common, if not almost recommended, that we don't match the reporting calendar to the instructional calendar, because we want people to see data during our beginning of the year kind of professional development or during the summer. And so you're going to pick that date. So whereas August, let's just say August 15th might be your first day of school, you might want to set the first day of the reporting calendar like August 1st. that date technically can be anything after the date when your SIS does its roll up. So a lot of districts do their roll up in SIS in July. Um, Anytime after that date, you have the option of doing that in Aware, and that's when it will affect, and your students will promote to the next grade or the next school or all those different things. If you have any questions about reporting calendars, please do not worry about bothering us. Please get that clarification because we want your rosters and stuff ready for next year to be right. And so if you need any clarification, always reach out. Next slide, please. Here we go. All right. We also, some of you have different ways that your users are being kind of managed. A lot of you use Active Directory kind of sync, and that might be done automatically where there's creation and deletion of users. So if you're in that boat, this is kind of being done for you from your technology department, but you always want to audit, right? If we have employees that are no longer with us, we want to go in there and make sure that their access is gone. And the delete is really not a hard delete. And so don't fear if you're in that where if you don't use Active Directory, if you actually manage users manually, don't fear that delete button because we can always restore. And so it's kind of hidden more than delete. And you see that undelete right there on the left side as well. And then always a good time if you, a lot of districts we see that we audit, people have roles and rights. We've been using Aware or Strive or all of our applications over time, and someone will just call the person that has access to give roles and rights and say, hey, I can't do this. And you just start checking check boxes, and over time it gets messy, and maybe we have some administration change, and we want to clean up roles and rights, and we want to take some access away from people that may have too much, or vice versa, all of those things. Obviously, the summertime is the best time to do that. And once again, if you want some pros and cons on what if we do this, please reach out and our team will be happy to help you. Obviously, our support team as well. There is a reset profile check when you click on the manage users. So if you're in this screen where it's organization and you click on the button that says manage users, at the bottom left-hand side, there will be an option that says reset profile check. What that will do, and a lot of districts do this, what that will do is that will force users, all users, so keep this in mind, it will force all users the next time that they log in after you click that button, it'll force all users to go through that profile and recheck, what are they teaching, what grade level, what subject. It'll have them re-put in their information so that you have everybody located in the right thing for those user groups. So that's not it's not required for you to do that, but a lot of times that's a very convenient thing to get our users back where we want them to be. All right, let's move over into Aware. And so Aware primarily, we have a few things that we kind of really recommend you do. Some things are optional, but there's a checklist for all of our applications that we're going to kind of follow through. Those checklists are going to be linked in this presentation that you will get a copy of. But if you want to go to our online help guide, there's a section on our online help guide on beginning and ending the year kind of processes. And these checklists are in there. So feel free to go find them. And so each year, we have certain things that we recommend. Some of them very strongly we recommend, and this will guide you through that. So not only this webinar we have, but there'll be a checklist for you, kind of like you give to your teachers. They got to turn in their keys. They got to, all those checklists to end the year. We kind of mirrored that with our kind of checklist for different levels of staff. So you see, we have administrators and teachers and so on. The first and really primary task, the biggest task for Aware users is archiving assessments. So let's talk about why we strongly recommend, and if I were in your district, I would call it a requirement, that all local assessments be archived. So worst case scenario, and I always use something like lab safety as an example. So we have 5th grade lab safety. It's unit 1. It was unit 1 last year. It was unit 1 the year before. It's unit 1 every year. And so we want to not have to recreate that test because we're going to give unit 1 test next year, and it's going to be about lab safety, and it's the same thing, same TEKS and so on. Well, if you just leave that test active and extend that date range, it causes the students from next year's data to mix with this year's data. And that data can only be housed in one school year. So the calendar is going to be looking at the start and end date of that test, and it won't put it in both years. It can only be housed in one year. So there's going to be a mix of data, and it's only going to be in one place, and half the people you're going to think that that's in the wrong place. All I have to say is don't do that. You can copy assessments even if they're archived. That's how you should do that. And so what that means is let's archive everything. And so the fastest, most efficient way to archive is through our mass test editor. You go to this mass edit assessments, and you at the search bar is where you'll search, and you see up there you can search by test state. So the best way to start your search will be look for all active assessments. And that'll probably bring up, depending on your district, a couple of hundred, could be a couple of thousand. And then you can search by grade level, you can search by subject, you can narrow that search down, because as you see in the second bullet, you can only mass edit or manipulate up to 130 assessments at a time. So once you get that number below 130, hit the select all checkbox and then archive all of those assessments. Once again, you can start doing that now. You don't have to wait until the end of the school to do that. Just make sure you're doing that for tests that we're finished with. We're no longer collecting data. And you can't archive a test if the end date of that test is past today's date. All right, you want to also clean up data views, right? So if you're a district level person with Aware, if you're a data administrator, you have access to not only see your data views that you've built, you also have access to see data views that have been built and shared by anybody else. And so we want to keep those lists of shared views as applicable and current as possible. And so if we have a bunch of views in there that might have been built by somebody years ago and maybe they're no longer here, at minimum, we want to go view those, edit them, make sure they're up to date, make sure they're still showing the data we want them to show, or maybe just want to get rid of them and clean up so that when our teachers log in and they see which data views we want them to see, they're the most current, most pertinent things. And so summertime, always a good cleanup time to do that. So if you're a data administrator, you have access to not only edit yours, delete yours, any view that's been shared at any level to anybody else, you can see those and update those here as well. And then lastly, we want to clean up monitor groups. And so monitor groups are great. They're kind of what I would call custom demographics. And so monitor groups work just like ethnicity or just like EcoDis. It's a group that we can monitor over time. We can analyze data on that. But unlike the SIS that controls those demographic groups, these are controlled manually in Aware. And a lot of times they're only applicable to a school year. And so they can get messy, messy, messy if we don't ever clean these up. And so a lot of times, if I'm at a district and I'm the district user, I might send out an email to all users and say, hey, I'm fixing to go in and clean up monitor groups. If you have a group in there that you've created that you're going to continue to use throughout the school year for some reason, because there might be a reason that it might still work next year, let me know. Otherwise, we're going to go clean this up. And so you see mass check these and mass edit these at a time. And so it's not just one at a time. You'll be able to select the check boxes and do that. So always a good idea to keep that list, once again, as current, as short, as clean as possible. It makes the use of monitor groups much easier. Now we're going to turn it over to Strive, and that is Paige. So Paige, take it over.
All right. And I actually remembered to unmute my mic before I started talking. Yay for me. You'd think I'd be able to do that every time, but I'm not. So we're going to talk about some of the end of the year things that you need to do in Strive. On the next slide, Allison, there's going to be, Jason talked about the link that you go into our online help guide. You'll see at the top of the page, a start and end of year section. When you go in that start and end of year section, you'll see recommendations for different groups. When you get the presentation tomorrow, it'll be probably sometime tomorrow when you get the email. When you get that presentation, you'll have the links that are in here. So you'll see there's a link at the bottom of this slide to that article that has the start and end of school recommendations. There's going to be one that says recommended tasks for teachers, one for appraisers, and one for district level people. And so you can go over and look at the things that are in there. Each one of those items that I have bulleted here actually has a link in the online help guide. So it'll take you to information about how to do this task. For your teachers, I would recommend that you somehow share this information with them. I know when I was in a district, we had a sign out sheet that all teachers had to do before they could leave on that last day and get a initials or check mark from somebody that they had done all the things. Some of these might be good to put on that checklist to make sure that teachers are doing them. We recommend that they download and save a copy for their own records of any professional development that they have in the system and also of their appraisal data. The district will always be able to see archives, and that means teachers and appraisers. Archives will be in the system. The district also has the ability to export those files as PDFs, and that's in that task for district level people. But as a teacher, I don't know if something might happen, might change, and I might move, or some circumstance may have me leaving the district. They need to have that information with them before they leave. So if you can let them know these are the things you should be doing in Strive before you leave for the end of the year, that would be helpful for them. Under the tasks for appraisers, there are several things for them to do to go in and clean up the data and make sure it's ready. That helps get their campus ready for the archive. It includes making sure that goals are marked completed and making sure that all the signatures are done. You can run a unsigned document report and find anything that's not signed. It will not prevent them from archiving if the signature's not there, but it could be an issue if you have a document that was never signed by the teacher and there's some question about it at some point in time. So the recommendation is to make sure you get all those signatures on there, and campus level appraisers can help with that. They can look at all their people, make sure all of their stuff is cleaned up and ready to go. And then the district level tasks are about archiving everything. And then after that archive, what changes do we need to make? What pain points did we have this year? Did the principals complain about any of the templates? Can we make any changes for next year to make it better for them? And so get everything archived and then go in and look at what changes you want to make for next year and start working on that. But you don't want to make any of those changes until after the archive. Okay, we also have a Strive preparation checklist, similar to what Jason showed on the Aware side. And there's a link to it in the slide so that you'll be able to find it. You can also find it in that end of year article, so it's in there as well. We do have recommendations about planning, getting a group together and talking about your needs, especially if you are a district that is either in TIA or just got your application approved for TIA, or are thinking about maybe doing TIA sometime in the future. Going through and looking at some of those things, planning as a group, considering the needs of all of the stakeholders when you go in and look at setting up your evaluation process and making any changes. One of the big things, and it is on this checklist, but I think it's also on the next slide, is, let's jump over one more. Moving to one of our new locked frameworks. So we have two frameworks that we have created that we are going to be supporting going forward. And this slide is a little bit about the why, and then you'll need to decide what your district wants to do. Both of the frameworks are locked for the purpose of data fidelity, integrity. We want to make sure that nobody can go in and accidentally edit or delete a framework, which would disconnect pieces of your data. So we created two new frameworks that are locked, and that cannot possibly happen. The first one is just called T-Test V2, and V2 just means it's not the original because it is locked. So there's no difference in the language. It's exactly like the regular T-tests that you may have been using for years now. It just will be a locked framework that will make your data safer going forward. We have an article in our online help guide about how to set it up. And you'll see that article linked at the bottom of this slide. We also have all of the templates that you'll need to set it up in our Eduphoria community, and there's a link to that article up at the top of this slide. And then beside each one of the frameworks, we also have a video linked in there. So there's a short video just showing you what you're going to do when you build the process, and it refers to that article and the things that you'll find in that article. The second framework that we have for you to choose from going forward is the Alt D1 framework. The state did come out with some alternative language for teachers who are not writing their lessons. Maybe they're getting their lessons from high quality instructional materials. And instead of the design lessons, which is the language of regular t-tests, it says that they will internalize those lessons. If you have teachers that are using those lesson plans and they are internalizing rather than writing or designing their own lessons, you might want to look at that framework. It's only different in two places. There is some part of Dimension 1.1 is different. It does say internalize instead of design. And part of the language is different in Dimension 1.3. It adds a phrase at the end about maintaining the integrity of the instructional resources. So you can look at that and see how it would best apply to your district. One recommendation that I would make is not to split your teachers between two different frameworks. Maybe look at the majority and say, we have a few teachers using high quality instructional materials, but the majority are still creating their own lesson. So we're going to use V2 and we're just going to train our appraisers what to look for in those specific subject areas. Or maybe the majority are using high quality instructional materials and you're going to switch everybody over to that one. I don't think there's anything wrong with a teacher who's writing their own lesson plans, also internalizing the content, looking at research-based instructional strategies, vocabulary, best practices, all those other things that are part of the Alt D1 language. So it wouldn't hurt them to have that language as part of their evaluation template. But the reason I recommend not splitting it is because it will split your data, because a lot of places the data is based on framework. One of those places is in the detailed analysis. So if you've been using detailed analysis to look at the results as they're coming in, you'd have to look at the V2 people and then look at the Alt D1 people separately. You wouldn't see everyone together at one time. The same is true for the TIA export. If you are a TIA district, that report is pulled by framework. So you would have to look at them separately. And then combine those reports. So I would think seriously before I split them between two frameworks because of the way it will impact your data on the other end. But we do have lots of information out there. In the community, we are only putting new templates and supporting templates that are related to these two t-test frameworks. So at some point, I would consider making that move so that you have access to all the new templates when they come out. Summer is the perfect time to do that. So once you get everything archived and filed away, you could make the change over to what you're going to use for next year. So I jumped ahead, Allison. If you'll go back one to the archiving slide, archiving is the step that you want to do first before you make any of those kinds of changes. We do have directions in our online help guide, and there's an article linked in there. And we also have a video that you can watch about archiving. So you want to make sure that all of your processes are complete because it's going to do any evaluation summatives. It's going to do anything that you have checked in those little check boxes there. So if you have TPES that's still open and you do the archive, it's going to archive TPES that's already happened. It doesn't, you don't archive by framework, you archive by document type. So you want to make sure that all of your processes are done. There are reports, and we have those listed out in the article that can help you, and they're also listed in the tasks for the appraisers and the district people to do. Run those reports, make sure everything is ready before you run the archive, and then make sure that you follow the directions in here because you have to set your instructional calendar before you run the archive. So there's one little step you have to do in management, then you come back to Strive and run the archive, and then you go back to management and correct your calendar. But all those directions are in the article and in the video. It's not a hard process. It just has some steps that you have to pay attention to. And then once it's all filed away, I usually go in and spot check some teachers to make sure that I'm seeing that new folder showing up in the archive to know that it has run. Okay, now I'm gonna make you jump forward too. All right. Other things to be thinking about at the end of the year. What are you doing with professional development this summer? Some of you are building those courses as regular courses, and that's great. Depends on if they're spread out over the summer, that may be the best way to do it. But if you are thinking about a professional learning event, like maybe a whole week of PD sometime during the summer, or maybe your week back from the summer, that first week of professional development for teachers is going to be multiple sessions for them to choose from. If you're doing something that's an event type thing with multiple sessions, you might want to take a look at conferences if you haven't used it already. Conferences allows you to schedule, it can be single day or it can be multi-day, but in one place you build all the sessions. You can have multiple people working in there, so you can create course contributors, or conference contributors is what they're called, and they can go in and create sessions. I can be building mine at 9 o'clock and you can be building yours at 9 o'clock in a different room, but it's all in that one conference. You can also have virtual sessions if you want to. So there's a way that you can set it up and they can register, but they could attend from home, and you have the link in there. And then the newest thing is that we have digital sign-in. So there's a QR code for each session. When they attend that session, they can scan that QR code. They have to be registered for it, and they would register by clicking on that little person you see. I've got a little box around where you would register for a session. Once they're registered, they scan that QR code and it will sign them in, so they're marked as present, marked as attended in the conference. One of the benefits of conferences is that once every session is closed out, then they automatically get that credit in their portfolios just like they do for courses. But the interface for copying, if you have multiple sessions at different times during the week, is really fast and easy. And then you can have your individual users sign up for the things that they want and get their credit. Again, we've got an article linked in there, and we also have a conferences webinar. I know it's a little bit long, but you can always look at the details of the webinar when it opens up in YouTube, and there'll be a thing that says show more. And when you click on show more, it'll give you the topics and the time in the video where that topic starts, and you can just click on that time and it'll jump ahead in the video. So if you don't want to see all the beginning stuff, you can just jump ahead to the part of the video that you're interested in. So hopefully that will be a good resource for you too. And then the final PD thing that we have in there is e-courses. If you have any users, Allison, can you move me forward one? Oops. One. There. Oh, I don't have e-courses in there?
I do not see an
Oh,
e-courses
well,
slide.
sorry about that. Then I'm just going to say something about e-courses. I thought I made a slide, but I'm confused with another presentation, I presume. E-courses are an asynchronous option. So if you wanted teachers to be able to attend professional development while they're at home over the summer, you can build an e-course, put all the content in there copy and paste article, stuff from presentations or links to things that are online. You could even turn a PowerPoint presentation into a video and put it in there. You can embed video into the system. So you can build all the content, and then they can sit at home in their PJs over the summer or beside the pool, and they can take the content and then submit it for credit at the end. So it's another option for that summer PD stuff. Sorry about that. So now I'm ready to go on to the next slide. I'm wrapping up now, but I wanted to point out what these are. When you get your presentation, each one of these buttons is a link, and the link is going to take you to a little self-guided demo of what that feature is all about. So if you have some questions about some of the things, like you see, oh, I don't even know what scripted comments is. When you get the link, you can click on it and learn more. And then there's also articles in our online help guide that are related to each of these little quick demos.
All
And I'm
right.
turn it over
So-
to Armando to talk about Aware Premium a little bit.
all right. Thank you so much, Paige. So if you are interested in Aware Premium or other additional subscriptions, feel free to contact our amazing partnerships team, and they can work with you to address those needs. You can reach them by emailing sales@eduphoria.net. Also, just as a reminder, we will include a slideshow like the previous one that Paige was showing that will include a self-guided tour of Aware Premium as well, if you are interested in that. Allison, Jason, Paige, thank you so much for walking us through preparing for end of year success. If you need additional assistance for other training related topics, please email training@eduphoria.net.
And we
And
do
next
have
slide, please.
we do have one question in the Q&A that's remaining. Is there a way, Paige, to require surveys for each conference session, like courses?
There is not currently a survey feature in conferences. What some districts are doing is there is a way for you to email all registrants. And so some districts that are using conferences are sending out a conference survey link. And it could be in FormSpace or it could be Google, whatever you use for surveys. And they're sending that out in a mass email from the conference's registration. So they just have to click on the button that says email registrants and send the link, but there's not a way to do one for each session at this time. It has been submitted as a feature request, and if you would like to submit it as a feature request also, we'd be happy to have those. The more we get, the more we know who's wanting what. So we always appreciate that input.
Thank you. Okay, Armando?
All right, thank you so much. We have one more question.
Yes.
Yeah,
Would it be okay?
Yeah, so Allison, if you want, can you, I know you're on the spot here, but you're sharing your screen. If you wanted to go ahead and log into an Eduphoria somewhere, any demo site or something, I'll be happy to show you, Jesse, where that's at. So if you'll bring up system management, we'll talk about the reset profile check and show that.
Okay, give me 1 second to get into Eddy ISD.
So you just hang tight. Sorry, threw a curveball in here for Allison. So you're going to go to system management, and then you're going to go to, so they're going to go to management right there. Okay. Yeah. And then we're going to go to manage users. And then down there at the bottom where it says manage user profiles.
Sorry, I just expanded my screen with all the windows on top of it. Okay.
All right. Manage user profiles at the bottom. And then there's a reset profile check at the top up there. So you don't want to click that right now, but that is the button that you click in order to force all users. And so it's every user. Every user, after you click that button, every user will have to go through and reset up their profile the next time they log in. Now, they only have to do that once, but they will have to do that.
All right.
There's one more question. Is there anything that we need to do with Forethought for end of the year? So Paige?
Okay, I just finished typing it, but I'll go ahead and say it for everybody. There's really not a lot to do with Forethought. I usually recommend that teachers save their lesson plans weekly as they create them. So hopefully they have all of those weeks files and they can just, I know I've got all my lesson plans saved. They can go back and do it at the end of the year, but there's not a way to say save all my lesson plans for the whole year. You can do it by day or by week. So it's kind of a longer task if you save it up till the end of the year. On the curriculum side, I would just recommend reviewing any resources that are in there that you think need to be updated or changed in any way. And then think about if there are what changes to the standards will be taking effect next year.
We know you're thinking about training for the summer, and we have some options for you on the next screen here. We're better and stronger together, and here's how. Our training and support teams work hand in hand to provide you with a wide range of valuable resources. Whether you need on-site training, customized virtual sessions, our teacher learning site, webinars, online help guides, or top-tier customer success support, we're here to help you succeed together. If you have any questions about any of the options on the screen, email training@eduphoria.net. And with that, I would like to thank Allison, Jason, and Paige for hosting. On behalf of today's team and all of Eduphoria, we would like to thank you for joining us on today's webinar for end of year success. Have a great day.